I would love if the mystery player is Zubimendi. Well, I'm going to get a poll together of some options that I think could be realistic. But before we do, let's have that discussion. So, Zubimendi would tick the box for a few reasons, right? He's 25 years of age. He is playing outside the Premier League, so that still fits into what David Ornstein said. Now, like all players in the Premier League, in La Liga, he has a release clause. So, it would be doable from that regard. But the one thing that I'm kind of going to pour a little bit of cold water on this is he's always struck us as somebody who wants to stay in La Liga. So I don't know if Zubimendi will be up for a move away from Sociedad and over to the Premier League, but it's certainly a name that I think most of the people in this chat would be fairly okay with. I have a list of 7 that I'm going to go through. So let me just read out my list and then we'll go into the chat a little bit more. Christopher has a comment that I guess ties into this, Christopher, so let me get this up on screen as well before I give you my list. And thank you, Christopher. Christopher Fiddler with us for 11 months as well as an Anfield Agenda member. Thank you so much, mate. He said, who do you think personally will be the number 6? And the honest answer, bro, is I haven't got a clue. But I'm going to give you a list of players that I think are possible. I did have Fofana on this list, but I do believe Yusuf Fofana is going to AC Milan. At least that's his preference according to Fabrizio Romano. So my list is Zubimendi, 25 years of age. Ederson, Atalanta, 25 years of age. Probably going to cost. Zubimendi's release clause, by the way, we believe is about 60 million euro or so. So then you've got Ederson of Atalanta. I think 40 million plus some add-ons would get him sorted out. Another name is Alan Varela, plays for Porto, 23 years of age, Argentinian, described as the next Javier Mascherano, albeit take that with a huge pinch of salt. How many times have we... Bruno Cheirou was going to be the next Zinedine Zidane, so you never take these things too seriously. Then there's Manuel Ugarte, who 1 for me isn't good enough, 2 United are looking at, and 3 hasn't got the right capabilities for what we want from a midfielder under Arne Slot, particularly in possession. Then there's 2 kind of off-the-wall suggestions. There's Morten Frendrup, who we spoke about previously, playing in Serie A. He's 23 years of age. And then there's Morten Hjulmand. You might remember him when we were linked with Ruben Amorim. He was a name playing at Sporting in a defensive midfield position that we had been loosely linked with as well. So they're the names that I'm thinking off the top of my head. But any ones that you guys would like me to discuss or any other suggestions you have, feel free to let me know. Eddie Cox-Wilkins, always very good to see you in, my man, and thank you for your super chat. Eddie said, who do you think the first midfielder will be? Again, mate, I don't want to throw a name out there because it is guesswork. I don't have the answer here for the midfielder. I wouldn't be surprised if we heard something tonight. So we've got certainly our eyes open for any incoming posts or any incoming notes. So if anything happens while we're live, if that name does come out for the 10 o'clock news or whatever, don't worry, I'll be here to give you guys the latest. It will be a bloody Feyenoord player probably, said Jamie Doyle. Well, I don't think it will. One thing that has stood out and something that Connor circled from Andy Hunter of The Guardian is that Liverpool are striving to reach a really high bar. So Liverpool are looking to bring in the creme de la creme. Now, of course, the creme de la creme in this position doesn't necessarily mean the person that costs the most, but it has to be the person that's right for our system. Worryingly, there's starting to be a little few things to suggest that maybe a midfielder could be it. That could be the end of the window because of how impressed Slot has been with some of the other players at the club. I think if we don't sign a centre-back, it's nothing short of madness, personally. But again, we'll talk about it tonight. Hughes is close to Zubimendi, his agent apparently, said Liver Lad. Could be, but you know, if the player is settled in La Liga and maybe doesn't want to move across to the Prem, there's not really much you can do there. If the player's up for it, then you know you've got the release clause, so not much any selling club in Spain can do. If somebody comes in, puts the money on the table and the player wants to move, they have to have a release clause in their contract. It's law in Spain. So if it's Zubimendi and he wants to move, well then we know what we'd have to do. Do you think Ornstein knows who the number 6 is? Well, he certainly alluded to knowing. At least that's how I read the information from David Ornstein. He didn't flatly come out and say, yes, I know who it is, but certainly the posts and the quotes I've seen suggest he probably must. You know, if he knows it's a player outside the Premier League, unless he's been briefed very specific things, I would suggest he probably does. Which I wish he'd tell all of us. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Right, let me get to Bradley Hall's super chat. Thank you, Bradley. Hi, Craig. How about Kone or Thuram? So Thuram, no. Juventus, done, sorted. If he hasn't gone there already, he's going there. I don't know if that deal was done or not, but I think Kefren Thuram, Juventus. If it's done or not, I can't remember. Manu Kone is somebody who's available really cheap. You know, there's talk of a fee of about 20 million quid now to sign Kone. So, you know, again, he was a player we were linked with last season when we had George Schmatka in doing the transfers. I don't know if Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes are still fond of the guy or not, so I don't want to say yes or no, but I don't think he'd be good enough. I don't think Michael Edwards would look at him and think he's the solution, but it's football, man, and anything is possible. Stevie boy, thank you, mate, for your super chat. As always, you're very kind. Said, whether Liverpool sign a DM or centre-back this window will not be a very good window. Future still up in the air. Thoughts? Well, if we sign both those positions, I'm okay. I'm okay, mate. Honestly, if we signed a centre-back and a central midfielder, I can understand not adding in the forward. I can understand. Look, we'd all like as many good bodies in as possible. But we don't want to move and become Chelsea. And I'm going to talk about Chelsea in a minute because their squad is just stupidly overpacked. So those are the two positions at the start of the summer I wanted Liverpool to improve on. And if we get those ticked off, I can't sit here with a good conscience and say it hasn't been a decent window. It's been a frustrating window to this point, but if we do fill those vacancies, then, you know, I've got to be fair about it and say I'll be happy enough. Because I do agree there's a lot there for Arne Slot to work with, but I also agree, and I cannot say this strongly enough, that FSG are cheap. You're cheap, John. You are cheap. Like, you're cheap. So where is the money? And why all of a sudden the three positions that weren't even up for debate are now all of a sudden there's no glaring holes being briefed? I don't buy that. I'm not having that. So we need to fill the glaring holes, and they're the two for me. David Massett said, as I said, you're showing Liverpool give Gravenberch a go at number 6. He can certainly play in a double pivot, but we've been after a specialist, and I've nothing against giving Ryan a chance, but we still need to go and get that guy, because Ryan could be the guy, but we need somebody who is the guy, definitely. There's nothing wrong with having multiple options. Just look at that stupidly big Chelsea squad. But, yeah, I like Gravenberch. And I'm converted because when we signed him, I was, you know, very worried about why we were spending the money on him. Why he left Ajax to go to Bayern didn't work. Why Bayern sold him so quickly as well. But I like him now. And I'm glad that... I didn't like these links to Turkey that have been popping up at Galatasaray. I want Ryan Gravenberch to stay.